15,
yeah,
is it?
15, yeah, you're down here for 15.
Well, you do spot up a watlam. Falcha, a car rev an jesh a vet parchuk, sa G sporuk sho. Ta an bille sho, harvet tobaktuk. Ta na Chomhar Creidmheasa an vod o nije quiga ort. Shin harter, shaska kuig blin. Agus le lin na treifse sin ni féidir luach a car na servishi agus an takiucht atá tucha ag na Chomhar Creidmheasa do coswinter na tira. So támuid an seo agus tucimidir aras modulé na sunri ach go homláin is céim dearfach céim dearfach ach bhéin agsúl gur a bé an chéad céim chun choras bancéireachta a chur fáil nach bhfuil buníthe bhrabús. I welcome the opportunity to take part in this debate, and we're talking about the credit unions and legislation that will empower and enable them to put forward a wider range of services. And I welcome that. And credit unions are here since 1958, which is almost 65 years. And during that time, I couldn't put a value on the work that they have done and the services they have given through thick and thin. And I'd like to think that this first positive step is a step on our way to realising and to implementing community banking in the real sense, a banking system that's not based on profit. Just on practical things first, I want to pay tribute. I've already congratulated you, Minister, in your new role, and I wish you the best. I want to also thank the previous Minister, Sean Fleming, who put in a tremendous amount of work in relation to this and kept us informed every step of the way. I'm a little worried about a number of things, and I'll come to the positive things. I'm a little worried about a number of things. Sean Fleming points out in his speech and that the cooler or the background to this is the shrinking banking sector. And that's a worry, because the shrinking banking sector really shouldn't be the step that's moving us to improve credit union facilities. It should have been proactively done as the way forward and to balance the unregulated, faulty banking system that brought this country to its knees. We should have taken action in relation to the credit unions a long time ago, like we're beginning to do in this bill, given recognition to the work that they carried out. And if we look, I want to thank the Library Service again for their work. And again, they're always under pressure. They're always under pressure because they're under pressure, not because of themselves. They do tremendous work in educating us, but because of the way that the matter comes before them, always late and always under pressure, and that's not helpful. So I don't know, Minister, if you have any influence on that. But they point out very helpfully to us the difference between credit union and banks. And it's very important really to highlight some of them. There are seven differences to compare and contrast, like doing an essay in school, you know, compare and contrast. Have I 20 minutes? Sorry. I thought I had 20 minutes. Yeah, no. That clock is right for me. And okay, all right, I just want to keep the rules. Yeah, okay. So let me look at number 7. Credit unions exist to attain the economic and social goals of members. Now, to me, that's crucial. They exist to attain the economic and social goals of members. And on the other side, we have banks exist to maximise profit and shareholder wealth. I should declare, and I should have at the outset, that I'm a proud member of a credit union, Igreel or Nagalliva. I'm a proud member of a credit union in Galway, along with 3.6 million other members of credit unions. I should have said that. And so the compare and contrast essay, the last one, they exist for the social and economic goals of members. They're not for profit. They conduct business solely with their members. And note here, Minister, they're not customers. We're customers of banks, but we get no services really. When you go in, you have to talk to a machine. So they're conducted for their members. Their members share a common bond, such as where they live or work, which is very important, that common bond. Now, I know there's positive changes in this bill in relation to extending that common bond, and that's to be welcome, because if I can't get a current account in my credit union in Galway, they can't refer me to another credit union under existing legislation. So it's very welcome that that common bond would be extended, but not lost, because it's extremely important that we keep it. Credit union members elect a volunteer board of directors from their membership. And again, I know there's some changes here where the manager can get on the board and it's up to the credit unions. Going back to the differences, the banks typically serve middle to high income clients. No restrictions on clientele. In relation to the board, shareholders vote for a paid board of directors. That's what the banks do, who may not be from the community or use the bank services, etc. Back to the credit union, surplus money generated from business activities belong to the members, belongs to me and the other 3.6 million members. In contrast, the bank's shareholders receive a pro rata share of profits. Number 6, financial services are provided by credit unions primarily on savings and loan products with some insurances, whereas there's a wide range offered by the banks. Now, I have no problem extending the range of services by credit unions. Certainly, when I had to change my bank and was obliged to, the credit union was my first port of call. Given the complexity of the way we're paid, it just didn't suit. But it was difficult. It wasn't easy for the credit unions to facilitate new members coming from various banks, including Ulster Bank. And so the library service has conveniently set that out for us, and I think it's very important to keep it in mind. The main provisions of, now, one other practical matter. We're led to believe by Minister Fleming when he was giving his speech to the Senate and when he updated us, that this legislation is to give effect to the review of policy framework of credit unions, the policy framework. Where is that policy framework? I would love to see it. My colleagues that work with me in the office have tried to get that. I haven't seen that policy framework. I really would like to see what was set out in that policy framework and what we're actually acting on. Maybe we're acting on everything, I don't know. It's particularly important when there was no pre-legislative scrutiny. Now, I don't know why there was no pre-legislative scrutiny, and I know Minister Fleming has highlighted more than once the amount of stakeholder meetings that he's had and the amount of work. It's clear to be seen. But I would like that done in a more open and accountable manner, because this is what this legislation is about. And I note that there are non-legislative changes as well to bring more openness and accountability that I might come back to. But there was no pre-legislative scrutiny. Maybe the committee waived it. I wouldn't think that's a good idea. I think that this should have been thrashed out so we can see it, and also to see the possibilities, what's not been done, what are the necessary extra steps that we need to look at providing community banking. Whether that's the credit unions or on post or a brand new agency, I don't mind, I'm open, but I'd like to be educated on it, and that hasn't been teased out whatsoever. As has been pointed out numerous times, the changes, it provides us for the establishment of corporate credit unions to enable credit unions to share resources and opportunities. Again, I've no difficulty with that. I do have a huge difficulty, like Deputy McGrath, with the word corporate. I have a huge difficulty. Now, I know, Minister, you've said that this has come from the credit unions themselves. And again, if this was debated and teased out at pre-legislative scrutiny, we would know where they were coming from. And perhaps a different word could have been chosen to continue to reflect the ethos of credit unions, which is there to serve their members, not make a profit, certainly not get too big. And if anything, again, and I'm at the risk of boring listeners, we need to go back to local and smaller, rather bigger and more transnational. That's what we've learned from COVID. That's what we've learned from the banking breakdown. And that's what we're learning from climate change. So I have a huge difficulty with that word. It provides a legislative basis to increase the maximum monthly entry rate. I understand that, to give flexibility and rise it up to 2% at a maximum if necessary. I've already mentioned the option of placing a manager on the board, and it provides for extended services and flexibility with the common bond or an extension of the common bond. And then practical matters like the board, the amount of meetings per annum reduced, and the different type of administrative obstacles that were there, which make perfect sense to me. again, everybody, we realised over that 65-year, we had how many credit unions? Something between 400 and 500 credit unions, down to 204 now, which is good and bad, in a sense. It is good and bad, because if the ethos of the credit union is to serve and to be there, I'm not sure that, well, let me put it a different way, there's a danger as we make them bigger and bigger that they become the very things that we don't want them to be, and they don't want to be themselves. And again, I want to pay tribute to the credit unions and to the 2,500 volunteers approximately. Really, it's an incredible story when you think about it. A service that has based on volunteers with paid staff, that has been there through thick and thin to give loans to people, trust being of the essence, trust on both sides, so that someone like me or someone perhaps earning a less salary can walk in and be treated the exact same and have the same respect and dignity shown to them, but more importantly, have the same rights, the same legal rights, regardless of my salary, regardless of the person who hasn't the same salary. It's an incredible concept, and I think it's something that we have to learn from, and that's why the publication of the review is very important, so that we see what's going on and to see where we go in the future. The other thing that struck me with Sean Fleming's speech in the Senate was when he pointed out that there's 20 billion in assets, approximately, give or take, and that a small percentage of that has been used in terms of loans, and they have been utterly restricted on how to use their money. I know you've pointed out, and I've checked it myself, and again, thank you to the Digest who've pointed out that there are now, what do you call them, vehicles in place that allow the credit unions to loan money to housing associations. I would love just, Minister, if you have an update on that. When did, I know it came in the year, that I'm not taking issue with the year, but very, very often it takes a long time for that vehicle to become active, that collaborative vehicle. So when did it become active in relation to the actual loaning of money to local approved housing bodies? You can tell me at the end, it's okay, I understand. But if you could, and how many loans have been approved? If you have figures and details around that, I'd be very interested in that. I would like also to acknowledge that there are, as I said, non-legal aspects to this, and the Irish League of Credit Unions, sorry, I beg your pardon, there's going to be a memorandum of understanding between the Central Bank and between the Advisory Committee and who's the third? I can't remember the third stakeholder in relation to the department. Thank you. In relation to this, I welcome that, and I also welcome that there's going to be an increased emphasis on transparency within the sector. I welcome all of that. I am worried, and I'll finish on this, I am worried about the word corporate. I am worried when I hear the word ventures. It's just open. Instead of learning how to do this better, which you seem to be doing, but forgive me if I'm cynical at my age and my experience and having watched the banks and having watched everything be commoditized from housing to health. Forgive me if I haven't as much trust as I should have in this system. So it seems to me the first thing is to publish the review. The second thing is to build in a review into this legislation so we can actually review that it's attaining what it's supposed to be attaining. And thirdly then, go back to actually whatever mechanism is relevant in relation to how do we establish a community bank, a national bank, fully based providing all the services, but on a non-profit basis that serves us best. And as I said, whether that's the credit union, the post office, or a new entity, that's one thing we have to have learned from the debacle of the banking crisis. Gur mille mágna